Hi, my name is Paige. Welcome to my channel. So at the beginning of the year, I put a story up on Instagram and asked for some recommendations for books throughout the year for a little graphic that I had seen, and I got 12 recommendations. So I thought it would be fun to do a two-part series where I read all of these books that were recommended to me. So this is part 1, where I'm going to read 6 of the books, and I'm going to let you know how I feel about them. At least I think I read 6. I could be very, very wrong about that number, but I thought I read half of them. And then in a couple of weeks, maybe in the month of November, I'm going to work on the other half of the books and try and have all of them read by the end of the year. So this is me reading the first 6 books of this. I am super excited to put this video out. It's been 2 months in the making. There was one book that gave me a hell of a time to get through, but we did it. We are at the end of this video, and I will just let you watch my journey of taking recommendations from my friends and seeing if I can trust their recommendations into the future. Good morning. So today I am starting The Rage of Dragons. This is probably going to be the one that I know the least about in this series, because the back just basically says that one man will become his people's only hope for survival, and then it's compared to Game of Thrones. So there's really nothing to tell me what this book is about. I also haven't really looked it up on Goodreads either. All that I know about this book is that a lot of people either say it's really, really good or that it's just okay, and that it's fantasy based, and I assume that there are dragons. But this one was recommended to me by Irving at the Dolphin Reader, and me and him are pretty good friends, and I trust that he would not steer me wrong on this one, and he keeps talking about how much he loves this book. So I'm going to give it a go. This is my first book of this series, and I'm excited to finally get into a fantasy book. It's been a couple of weeks since I've had like a really heavy fantasy, so I'm excited to be listening to this over the next few days, and I will let you know how I'm feeling when I get to maybe about halfway. Okay, I am home. I have been listening to Rage of Dragons all day long, and I cannot tell you what the ever loving hell is happening in this book. I am well over halfway through it. I think I have about 3 hours left of the audiobook, and I do not know what's happening. I had to message Irving, and he had to basically summarize everything that I had already read because I didn't understand. And I feel so like weird saying that, but this book is just not hard to read, but it is so much battle. So it starts off with this queen, and all of her people are like in a war, and they are fighting, and it just starts off with action. And then after that chapter is wrapped up, we move on to the next chapter, which starts the battle, and every single chapter has some sort of fight scene. And I don't know if it's just my brain or if other people have this experience too, where when there is war and battle scenes, like I tune out any of the fighting. And this is all fighting and training and learning how to be a better swordsman, and I am hearing none of it. I am trying to actively listen, but I'll succeed for maybe 5 minutes, and then I cannot anymore. It's just non-stop fighting, and I am not having a good time. I honestly don't want to finish it, but there's only 3 hours left, and I'll just trudge through. But basically, the summary of this one so far: I am crooked. I will try and fix that. We're just still crooked, but whatever. So this is about a land that I could not tell you the name of. There's so many names to keep track of in this, and I am struggling. A land that has been at war with the natives for a very long time. And protagonist, is that what he's called? Our main character. His name is Tao, and at the beginning he like is training to be a soldier, but he doesn't actually want to be a soldier. And then his father is murdered in front of him, and he wants to get revenge on the people who allowed his father to die or actually murdered his father. See, I'm a little unclear on that part too. And so he sets off to like become the best person in the military possible, so that he can then have the skills needed to kill these 3 like noble men who murdered his father. I could be totally off on that summary as well, but that is what I've gathered from it. I'm not certain though, so like take that summary with a grain of salt. But basically where we're at is that he's like training, and I don't know if he's like in a training school or if he's like in the military technically. I don't think he is, but he's just like fighting a lot of battles, and there's not a dragon in sight despite the name. There are demons though that he is learning how to fight, because in this world there are women who have the ability to like send men into like the underworld, and then those demons will like kill these men. So it's like their military strategy as women is to send the opposing people into the underworld so that they get killed by demons, so that it helps their men fight better. I think, again, not certain on what's happening here, but the things I do know and do like is that this is like a matriarchal society. So you get your mother's name, and the mothers are the ones who have the power, and queens don't marry at all, but they do have heirs, and everything's passed down through the mother's line, which I thought is a really cool touch on this. What else do I like? Nothing. I don't really like our main character because there's nothing to get to know about him. He's on a quest for revenge, and you don't know pretty much anything about him besides he really loves this one girl from his town, and he wanted to be married to her, and you don't know much about her because all this shows you is just war and battles and training and swordsmanship, and that's all that I've gained. That's all that I've gained, and I am not having a great time. So this is not the book for me, but I'm gonna see it through. We're gonna see if any of it makes sense at the end. I'll probably watch a few YouTube videos and read a few reviews tonight to figure out what the heck is going on, and I am fully gonna spoil everything for myself so that as I listen to it tomorrow I will know what the hell is happening. That's something I like to do. If I'm reading a book that I don't understand, I will just spoil everything for myself so that as I continue reading it, things make more sense, because then I at least know what happened and I'm not just guessing and asking Irving to explain what is going on. So yeah, I am predicting 2 to 3 stars. This is not a good start to this video, but hey, at least we're getting the one that I hate the most maybe out of the way. I hope this is the one I dislike the most. It's gonna suck so bad if the other ones are bad or worse than this. I'll let you know how I feel later. And the verdict is, I did not like this book. I finished it, and I think I had to up my speed to like 2.6 if I wasn't already reading it that fast, because this is one giant fight scene, and I think my brain is hardwired to ignore a single fight scene. The second somebody starts fighting, I'm out. I'm checked out. I do not care. I do not want to listen to any more of it. I can't follow along because I've never been a soldier. I've never fought a sword battle at all. Is that even what it's called? So none of it made sense to me. And I'm not talking like, oh, there's a lot of fights. No, I'm talking every single chapter had multiple fights, and you're following our main character Tao as he's fighting different people, and every single person gets a different name. So let me just talk about characters. We have Tao, who is our main character, and then he has other friends, I guess, or fellow soldiers, and they all have names that I could not tell you, because not only are they names that I am not familiar with, and I was listening to this audiobook, there are also ranking names as well, and I could not keep anything straight just because I wasn't familiar with these names, and listening to it and not being able to see the names with my eyes and read along, I think was a huge detriment to me. So this is one that I do not recommend audiobook because of how much you have to keep track of, and I think that might have really played into my dislike. But anyway, back to characters. We really only see Tao, and we spend the most time with him, and every so often I think it popped into another person's point of view. It would be so random, and the voice would sound so similar that I couldn't tell if it was Tao or if it was somebody else, because this is written in third person, so it doesn't go from like, I am doing this, I am fighting this person, to so-and-so is doing this, so-and-so is doing that, and that was really hard for me to follow. I seriously just had like a hell of a time getting through this book, and the only character that I did end up enjoying ends up dying at the end, and I don't want to say who or anything else because I feel like that would be a spoiler, but it's hard to get to know any of these characters. You get to know a few of his fellow soldiers or the people he's training with, but there's not a lot of rest time in this where they're talking or chatting or going out anywhere. I think they go out to a bar like once, and then immediately Tao like walks away and goes with somebody else and goes into like another fight scene. And I do not do well with books where there are no character relationships, no character development. I felt like I didn't know Tao besides the point that he had lost his father and he was seeking revenge, and he just wanted to be stronger, and he did it to the detriment of his body, to the detriment of his sanity. He was willing to do literally anything to get revenge on these men who killed his father. It was exhausting. I am exhausted by this book. I didn't really understand the ending. I might need to go. I've been trying to read reviews all day and figure out what in the world happened in this book, but I still don't really remember the ending, and there are only dragons in the very first chapter and like the very end. So don't know why this had the name Rage of Dragons, because there were definitely more demons and there were dragons. Oh, and there's one more thing that I wanted to mention, and I don't know if I did in the last clip, but right from the start I noticed that there was a slur being thrown around that was often referencing a group of characters. So in this, our very first opening scene is a queen and her people coming on to a land and fighting a war so that they can win this land and live there, because she needs her people to survive and she needs a place for them to live. So they're fighting against the natives of this land, and they started throwing around like the S slur for indigenous people, and immediately I picked up on like that, on just like how strange that felt. So then I looked up reviews, and a lot of people were also noticing that, where the protagonist and the group of people that we are supposed to think are the good guys are the ones who have colonized this land and are fighting the natives who just want to keep their land protected. And it's just a little bit uncomfy. No, not a little bit, a lot uncomfy. And I don't know if this is ever addressed. Like, I didn't read into the next book, or I don't even know if the next book is out, but I haven't read any reviews on like if that's addressed, or if like the people that we are supposed to think are the good guys ever learn that like they are in the wrong, because they are literally on a group of people's land trying to kill them, and they're blaming them for all of their problems when they are the colonizers. So that is a big ick from this book. Like, from the start I did not enjoy that part, and it never remedied. Is that the word I'm looking for? Rectified? Got rectified by the end. So I don't know how it goes on in other books in this series, but yeah, that's a big yikes for me, as well as no character development or relationship. I guess there might be character development, but no development of relationships beyond like a few conversations. So I look rough. I've been at work, I'm sorry, but yeah, this is a bleh for me. It might be a 2-star. I'm gonna throw it in call pile and see how it goes. But I already talked to Irving. He knows that I'm sad with it. And I feel very bad for hating on his recommendation. But we're gonna find other books that me and him both enjoy. So I don't know what I'm reading next. I guess you are gonna find out along with me, because I'm reading this way ahead of when I'm planning to read the rest of the books in this vlog. So it's July 20th. I guess you'll see me on whatever date's next. Alright, I'm sorry, Irving. I wasn't a fan. Too much fighting. Good morning, friends. So today we are going to be reading All Quiet on the Western Front by Eric Maria Remarque? I'm not even going to pretend that I am excited to read this one, but this was suggested by Chloe to read, and she's one of my good friends, and we tend to read the same books. We just don't always tend to feel the same way about these books. So books that I've given 5 stars, she's given like 3 or 4 stars, and like vice versa. So I know that she's not going to completely steer me wrong. If she enjoyed this book, there is going to be aspects of it that I'm going to enjoy. And I'm okay with the audiobook length, because I believe it's only 6 hours, which doesn't make sense, so I'm kind of confused if I picked the wrong audiobook. But I just don't know if I want to read a war story, which is titled The Greatest War Novel of All Time. And it's about a young man who's 21 years old, it looks like, and he enlists with his German classmates into the German army in World War I. And like, I just know that either our main character is going to die at the end, or all of his friends are going to die. And I just don't know if I'm excited to read this. I'm trying to go in with like a positive mind and know that there's going to be parts of this that I like, because I have historically liked World War stories. That's what I gravitated towards in high school and the very beginning of college before I stopped reading for a while. So I know I like historical fictions, and I know Chloe is not going to give me a book that I'm absolutely going to detest, but I don't know. This is one of those books that you just kind of look at going, ah, that's one of those books that every high school boy just falls in love with and thinks is like peak literature, you know? That's what I see when I see All Quiet on the Western Front. So we're going to attempt this today. I will let you know how I feel at the end of the day, because I think I'm going to be able to fly through this audiobook. I swear it said it was like 6.5 hours maybe. So I guess I will be checking in once I let you know how I feel about this book. Oh man, I'm not sure how I feel about today. I hope it's good. I do. I hope it's good. I need to go to work now. So I had every intention of stopping at my park and finding a nice little backdrop in my car so that I could film this clip, but I chickened out and we are at home. But I finished All Quiet on the Western Front, and you know, she didn't steer me wrong, but let me just tell you, when a book starts out with, this book is to be neither an accusation nor a confession, and least of all an adventure. For death is not an adventure to those who stand face to face with it. It will try simply to tell of a generation of men who, even though they may have escaped shells, were destroyed by the war. You know it's gonna be a rough one. So that was hard to read. I did not cry, though I definitely felt a little choked up at certain points, but this was literally such a beautiful book. The writing in this was so beautiful. The narration of whoever narrated this book did such a great job. His voice was just so steady, but it was also so detached from the character, so it just felt ominous the entire time. Is I feel like the best way I could explain this. I literally had anxiety the last half of the book, even though you know what's gonna happen. I feel like saying my prediction from earlier was basically correct is not too much of a spoiler. This book came out a very long time ago, and it's just, you know that nobody's making it out of this one. But man, it was hard to read. It's just one of those stories where, like, you know how awful war is, but all of the movies and media that come out about wars, it makes it seem awful, but it also gives you like a love story to root for, or a family that you want them to get back to, and you watch these men go through battles where they come out the other end and they win those battles, and even if they lost a friend or two, they have hope. They have people that they want to go back home to, and you didn't get that in this book. You just followed this man, this 19-year-old who signs up for war. You just see the ugliness of the war, and the imagery that is in this book and the writing it's clear. Like, you have this movie playing in your mind, and it's sad and it's heartbreaking, and I don't know if I enjoyed myself, but I appreciated it. There was just one quote that really got to me, and I can't pronounce a couple words in it, so I'm just going to read the first part, but it says, "I am young. I am 20 years old, yet I know nothing of life but despair, death, fear." And that just hit me. When you read a book, like, I feel like I always relate myself. I put myself in that character and I try to imagine how would I feel. But I was just trying to think, like, if I, at this point in my life, had to be sent to war and there was like a 90% chance that I was going to die, would I feel like I had done anything in my life? And I don't feel like I would. But these men in this book were so young, and I think it was really showing that there were so many young men who had been sent to these wars who never got to do anything in life. They never got to experience anything other than war and death. And that's such a huge tragedy, and it's so heartbreaking that they just had little lives that all they got to know was terror, and I am heartbroken by it. This like will resonate with me for a really long time. This is just one of those books that you're always going to have in the background of your mind and remember whenever you read other war books. I feel like, at least for me, I'll come back to this book and just think of the terror and the fear that all of these men felt during these times when they knew that they were dying, and they knew that they probably didn't have a chance of coming out the other end. And wow, okay, it was definitely a good one. I don't know how I'm going to rate this one. I'll have to plug it into Copile and see what I feel, because it didn't make me cry, like, but I also think that's because I hardened myself because I predicted what was going to happen. I just knew in my gut what was going to happen, and I just closed that wall of myself so that I wouldn't end up sobbing. So that might have been the reason why I didn't cry all throughout work, but it was good. It was a good one. Chloe, you did a good job on this one. I did enjoy this book, but I'm gonna wrap up my thoughts here because I need to eat dinner, and I think I'm going to do some reading sprints with my Discord. So I will check in with you when we are reading the next book for this vlog. Good morning! So we are finally going to be reading We Hunt the Flame by Hafsah Faizal. This was repeatedly recommended by Nat because she loves this book so much. So I know I'm going to at least enjoy it because me and Nat have very similar reading taste and it just sounds like a good book. It sounds like a fun little fantasy. So it seems to be about a hunter who she disguises herself as a man so that she can go into like this cursed forest and help people out, and she's going in to like find a lost artifact, but apparently there's a prince of death who is told to go and capture her or kill her or something, and he doesn't seem to want to really kill people. So it sounds like a good time. I'm very intrigued to read this one, and I think it might take me just one day. It might also take me 2 days, so I will let you know where I get at the end of my work day. But I need to drive to work now, and I will talk to you in a second. The most tragic thing just happened to me. I walked all the way to my car, which is like probably a quarter of the mile from where I work, all the way up the stairs in the parking garage, and realized I left my keys on my cubicle. So I had to walk all the way back, grab my keys, and walk right back to the garage. And I did not wear the shoes for that today, so I am in pain. But I have made it to about 60% of We Hunt the Flame, and I'm not going to give my feelings on the plot overall or the book overall, but I am going to give my feelings about the narration. So this is narrated by 2 people, and I like both of their voices individually. I even recognize the male narrator's voice because he narrated Strange the Dreamer and Muse of Nightmares, and I knew that I liked his voice, and I even told Nat that I just find his voice like really soothing, but I had a hard time listening to Strange the Dreamer because I didn't like that book, and I listened to it twice, and then I read Muse of Nightmares, and I just didn't love that series. And so listening to this man's voice is kind of like bringing me back to the way I felt during Strange the Dreamer, where I keep getting confused on what book I'm reading. So I think that's kind of funny. And there's one thing that I'm really not liking about the narration right now, and even though I love both of these narrators' voices a lot, I feel like the voices that they chose for the characters aren't matching up with the story. So the female narrator has like this very childlike voice for our main female character. I think it's Zahira. Oh, I like when you don't read the names, they don't stick with you. Audiobook names just disappear out of my brain, at least. But I feel like she has a very childlike voice when she's narrating Zahira's voice, and it makes me really question how old she is, because I feel like at one point at the very beginning of the book, somebody commented that our main female character looks like she's 13 years old, and I don't know how old she actually is. So in my mind, sometimes she's 13, 14, 16, I don't know, because our narration is just very childlike, and then we have like a full-blown man with our male narrator, so there's really no romance going on, but it just makes me a little weirded out that we have like a childlike voice and then we have like a manly voice, and it's a strange choice. It is a very strange choice, but I do like their narrations. It's just they're not matching up with the story. But I don't think I'll be finishing this book today. I think I'll give it a go tomorrow and finish it then, because I have some editing to do for my video that's supposed to be out very soon. So that'll be my July wrap-up, which should be out already by the time you're seeing this. But yeah, I just wanted to give my thoughts on the narration, and I will let you know how I feel about the plot and everything when I finish up with the book tomorrow. I wish I could say I fell in love with it, but that just wasn't the case. I enjoyed it, I did. I did not have a bad time. I did not have a great time though, either. So I'm very neutral on this book overall. And I can't really tell if this was like a narration problem, because in the last clip I did tell you that this narrator was the same as the one in Strange the Dreamer. And I don't know if it was just that the books were very similar, or if my mind was a little bit scarred from listening to Strange the Dreamer for 2 days straight and not enjoying it, that I struggled through this. I don't know if that was the case. I feel like I should have read along to this one, and I feel like that's starting to become a problem with listening to audiobooks only while I'm at work, is that I can't take the time when I'm starting to not understand or when I'm not really paying attention as well to look with my eyes and follow along and like find things that I am more connected to. So I found myself getting really distracted all the time. I would pause this a lot. I would go and leave my phone and go and talk to somebody else around my office. So I can't say it hooked me, but I also wasn't having a bad time. Every time I would listen to it, I was intrigued enough to follow along. I can't tell you for certain all of the plot lines. I can't tell you all of the characters' names. I can't tell you all of their relationships or how they showed up in the story, but I do know like the overall story. So basically this is about a hunter named, oh my gosh, Zafira, and she is basically told by this witch that there is an artifact in the desert that she needs to go and retrieve so that magic can be restored to their world, their kingdom. And then there is a prince who is also kind of the sultan's assassin, and he is told that he needs to go and retrieve the hunter so that she does not get this artifact, so that it can be in possession of the king. So it's them going on this quest, one to get this artifact, one to kill the other while getting this artifact, and we have a couple of side characters that come along, and it's pretty action-packed. Like if you are interested in fantasy stories, YA fantasy, I feel like it has enough in it to keep you entertained. I just struggle with this writing style. I always have, and I don't foresee myself not struggling with it. I just feel like there is this disconnect between me and really beautiful lyrical descriptive writing where I can never find something to like tether myself to and care for, and I try my best to find a character that I enjoy, that I like enough to follow their storyline. And it's really hard when authors write stories with that really descriptive language for me to see past that. I think a lot of the time authors will build these beautiful worlds and this beautiful imagery, but because they dedicate so many words and so much time on the descriptions and how things look, I feel like it ends up lacking in characters and their development and their growth and their relationships and in the pacing of books too. So I'm pretty sure that this book happened over the span of 2, maybe 3 weeks, and that was another hard thing for me to follow along with, especially because there was a character that I did enjoy that I started to connect with, and then that character was killed really early on, and then all of these things happen over the course of like 10 days, and I feel like I wasn't sold on the way that the characters were reacting, especially our main character, because the person who died was somebody she was close with. She didn't have any sort of grieving arc really, except for like maybe a day or two, and then there were other circumstances that I felt like she just moved on from that death really quickly. So I feel like when there's so much time dedicated to descriptions and words and imagery that you just lose depth with characters and their relationships and their development. I'm not saying that it was bad in here. I felt like I got to know the characters well enough. I just wish that there was more of them on a journey together instead of just thrown in the spot, have to figure it out in a couple of days, and then yoinked out of that spot and dealing with the aftermath of it, you know? So it wasn't my favorite. There were things that I did really enjoy about it. I liked our main character Zafira and her relationship with her best friends and her sister. Those were like really beautiful relationships. I enjoyed, oh, I cannot remember his name, Nasir, the prince, his like dark and twisty side and the reasons why he is the way he is. I really enjoyed that. And then we had another character, Altir I think, and he started to become definitely my favorite character towards the end. He was like kind of the funny, witty, a little bit of a bully character, and he reminded me a lot of the other snarky bully character that's in Strange the Dreamer. So full circle back to my problems with narration. I genuinely think that if you enjoyed Strange the Dreamer, you might like this book, and I would say if you like this book, you would probably like Strange the Dreamer and Muse of Nightmares, especially with the narrator being the same. And I feel like the world building is very similar, and the descriptions and the way that the characters interact with each other, I felt like I was reading another Strange the Dreamer book, I'm not gonna lie. So again, I didn't love it, I didn't hate it. I think that the writing is beautiful. It's just hard for me to connect to this writing style. I enjoyed the characters, and I decided to go ahead and start reading book 2 already, and that one's called We Free the Stars or something, because I already purchased the hardcover of it and the book is free on my library app. So I decided that I'm just going to go ahead and like push through it and hope that I start to connect to them a little bit more, especially when it seems like we're going to be getting a little bit more of Altair. I want to say Alistair, but that's not right. Altair in the other book, and he is definitely my favorite character. But I do want to share a couple of angry thoughts that are very spoilery. So if you have not read the book, you can go ahead and skip this part right here. And I am just going to complain for a little bit about a few things that I was not a fan of. All right, I am angry about Dean. I think his name is Dean. If it's not Dean, I'm sorry. But that's what I heard when I was listening to the audiobook. But I just like don't understand why he was killed off. I do not understand this one bit. So we got to know him and his relationship with Zafira, and it seemed like he didn't really understand where she was coming from and her motivations for wanting to go and find this jewelry thing that she needed to find. And so I was like trying to decide if I even liked him for her, and I was kind of on the edge of like, no, I don't think I like him for her. I hope that we can see like their relationship develop into just stronger friendship and that he can find his own love interest. I was even thinking that like Zafira's sister would be a good match for him. Like they would go on this little journey and he would come back and he would be like, oh wow, maybe she's the one for me instead of Zafira. But then he just gets dead. And for what? Like it's right at the beginning of getting to know him and starting to connect with his character. So I felt like it wasn't that big of an impact, and then we had to like hear Zafira feel guilty for not loving him, and it just felt like it was too sudden. I feel like if he would have lasted like a few more days or at least a week and got killed like halfway through their mission in the desert, then it would have made way more sense. But him dying at the beginning infuriated me because he was the only character that I cared about at that point, and I didn't want to read anymore. And I was hoping that he was going to be revived, like it was going to be some like magic where she figured out this problem and he comes back to life at the end, but that was not the case. And then another thing. So I have a problem with thinking that every single book should be gay. So I hope I wasn't the only person who was kind of feeling like there was something going on between Nasir and Altair. Like the bantering and the bickering and the teasing and stuff felt a little flirtatious, and then finding out who they were to each other made me question all of my intelligence. Like, was it hinted at a little bit more that they were actually related? Because I definitely thought that Altair was in love with him for a good while. I was like, oh, this is going to be a really fun enemies to lovers. I thought it was going to be gay. It was definitely not gay. That's a problem I tend to have in books like this, where you find out that they're actually brothers. I think I did that in the Curse of Dark and Lonely series too, where I was kind of shipping the guys together and then they ended up being brothers. So that's a me problem, but I hope I'm not the only one, because that was really awkward for me when I figured that out. Okay, end of spoilers. But I did film a clip in the morning when I knew that I was going to finish We Hunt the Flames, and I thought that I would have more time in the day to then pick a second book to start reading. I obviously ended up continuing on with the second book in this series, but I do also need to read The Push by Ashley Audrian and Dracula by Bram Stoker in this vlog, and I genuinely do not know what I'm going to read next. So I might update you on how I feel about We Free the Stars, and then I will decide by then which one of these I'm going to read next. But I'm running out of time to finish all of these books in this vlog, so I gotta get reading like immediately. I also have to edit some videos, and I also have a trip that I need to pack for this weekend, so I'm a little overwhelmed, but it'll be fine. If this video comes out and you're watching it, then everything worked out. It all worked out. Okay, good morning. I'm like back to the future because I'm filming this before I've even finished We Hunt the Flame. But my problem is I'm probably going to finish We Hunt the Flame today during work, and I need to start either The Push or Dracula. This was recommended to me by Marley Reads a Lot, and this was recommended to me by a user named Lesby Ray, and I cannot find that user anymore, so I can't tell you what their name is, or if I know their reading taste. I can't look at their Instagram because I just can't find this user. So part of me doesn't really even want to read Dracula. It's August. I feel like this is like more of a Halloween type read to give it a go, but I also know that if I don't read this book, I will probably never read it. So I want to push through and try and read it, but I don't know if I want to read a classic without reading along to it. So I'm kind of in a little bit of a pickle with this one, but I do know that this one is about like motherhood. That is all that I know about this book. I know Marley reads a lot of thrillers, so I'm kind of thinking that this is a thriller. I am leaning more towards trying to start this one and then attempting to read this later, but I'm not sure what I'm going to do. So I guess when I give you a check-in, you will know which book I decided, but it's probably gonna be the push. But I really do need to like force myself to just read Dracula. So I might try out like a couple of chapters or maybe like 30 minutes of this to see if I feel like I can pay attention to this audiobook without reading along to it. And if I can't, then I'll just switch over to this and then read this at a different date. So I need to go finish We Hunt the Flame now. Ooh, my hair is a little frizzy, but that's okay. Hello. So I am about to jump on a live reading sprints with Nat and Catherine, and I'm so excited, but I have not decided which of the two books that I am going to read yet. So I did finish We Free the Stars, and it was okay. I didn't love it, I didn't hate it, but it was just fine. I felt the same way about book 2 as I did book 1. The pacing was better, but I just never like felt emotionally attached to any of the characters, and I think Audrian ended up being my favorite character, and I liked where his storyline ended up, so I was satisfied enough with that. But anyway, I think I'm going to ask whoever's watching the sprints which book I should read. I also have Ravensong, because I just finished reading and annotating Wolfsong for Serena, and I want to read and annotate this one for her as well before I send it to her. So this is another option, but I don't know what I'm going to be reading tonight, so I guess you are going to find out with me. It's official. The Push is what we are going to be reading today. Will Dracula make it into this vlog? Only time will tell. Only time will tell. But I guess I will let you know what this book is about after I'm finished reading it, because I need to get to work early today. So that means I need to go and pack up my lunch and stuff and leave. So I will let you know everything about this book after I'm finished reading it. It's a hair wash day. I feel like my hair is sticking straight up and I can't get it to go down. I'm gonna wash that very, very soon. But anyway, I completed The Push today, and oh man, this was creepy as heck. So essentially this book is about a mother who is writing a letter to her ex-husband, and she's like recounting their entire life together and her relationship with her children. So her name is Blythe, and after a few years of marriage, her and her husband decided to have a baby together, and she had a daughter, and she just never really felt connected to her daughter. And she's like recounting all of these memories that she has with her daughter and how she just never felt quite the maternal instinct that she thought that she could. Every now and then she would, every now and then she wouldn't, and she's just telling the story of like all the strange things that went on with her and how she felt about her daughter. And then later on they decide to have another baby, and she feels way more connected to her son than she ever did with her daughter. And I don't know what else to say, because I feel like everything else that I could say about it would be a spoiler, and I just had a really fun time figuring everything out that was going on. So I don't want to say much else besides it is creepy and it's very suspenseful and it's frustrating, and I really enjoyed it. This was such a good one. So Marley, thank you for suggesting this one. It's also a very quick read, so if you are looking for something that you can fly through in under a day, I would definitely recommend this one. The audiobook is really good. I felt very creeped out by it. I really had a good time, but also not a good time because there were some creepy things going on in this one. But yeah, it's definitely about like motherhood and potentially like generational trauma. I don't know. It was creepy. It was creepy. I had a good time. I like this one. Okay, and for an update about Dracula. It is the 11th currently when I am filming this. I'm planning to put this video out on the 26th of this month. So that means I have like 2 weeks kinda to finish reading Dracula. So I'm going to try my very, very best to include Dracula in this vlog. I have read 1 chapter, I have the audiobook on Audible, and I'm really going to try my best. I'll probably have to move around some of my reading plans because currently I have 7 books that I need to read in the next 2 weeks, and I want to be able to read this while I am at home so that I can actually follow along with my eyes, because even that first chapter I was really struggling with the language. It's not super hard to understand, but I feel like if I was listening to it I would miss a lot of details. So it might be a few weeks until I'm able to update you on this, but it'll only feel like a few seconds for you. It'll just be weeks for me. But I'll see you in a second when I have any sort of update with Dracula. So I am pushing my way through Dracula. I have not wanted to pick it up at all. So I was stuck on page 20 for the longest time, but I have officially gotten to page 110, and it is definitely getting interesting. So it starts off with a diary entry, or multiple diary entries, from a man named John Harlow, I think, and he is Dracula's solicitor. So he goes to Dracula's castle and is getting to know him and starts to notice like very, very strange things that are happening, and then he starts to realize that Dracula's like holding him prisoner and is setting him up for death. And so we get all of these diary entries from this man, or journal entries, and then he's basically like, yeah, I'm about to die right now. And then we go into different journal entries from his fiance, and we're also hearing from other characters through like letters and newspaper articles and other journal entries of these people who are living in London, who are all kind of tied back to John Harlow. And one of these women, Lucy, who is the best friend of John Harlow's fiance, she is starting to get like really sick, and she's pale and not feeling well. And then some days of the month she's feeling fine, she's doing just okay, and then she'll go back to being like gaunt looking, pale, sick, and we are trying to figure out what is going on with her and why this is happening. She has 2 pinprick marks on her neck, and she seems to be losing a lot of blood, but where is the blood going? So it's getting more interesting on how it's being told, because I, at first when I was reading it, was starting to think we were just going to get the entire stay of John at Dracula's mansion castle place, and I couldn't understand how he was going through so many things so quickly, and we still had like hundreds of pages left. So I didn't know what was going to go on with that, but I like where this is going. I am more interested in it. The language is a little tricky sometimes. There are parts that are written in somebody else's accent, and the audiobook narrators are doing a pretty good job of reading it in a way that makes sense to me, but they also have accents. I don't have familiarity with those types of accents, so sometimes the words are not really registering for me, especially when people in this book making fun of other people's accents. I don't know how to explain it. So there's accents on accents on accents that I am not familiar with, and phrases that I just don't fully understand. So I think I'm getting the gist of the entire plot line. I'm getting the overarching plot, just not all of the details with it. So I think I will be able to push through this in the next couple of days or weeks, because I am understanding it more than I thought I would. So I am going to check in with you when I get maybe to the end, maybe almost to the end. We will see, but I'm doing it. I'm reading Dracula. I am pushing myself to do this. Okay, I have made it to page 250 of Dracula, and it's holding my interest a little bit more. I've been pretty surprised on the things that happen in it. I didn't expect a certain character to die and then turn into a vampire. That was kind of out of nowhere, at least to me, because I really don't know anything about this story. But we've gotten a lot more background on vampires in this world. We've gotten to know a little bit of the lore, things that repel them. the powers that they have. Vampires are like really freaking strong in this, and I feel like it's a little bit different than vampire stories that I hear now, but I keep comparing it to Vampire Diaries in that world. So I feel like there's a lot of similarities and differences between the powers in Vampire Diaries and the powers in this book. I feel like Dracula's really freaking strong based on what he's able to do. Like, he can control the weather, he can compel people to do things, he can shapeshift, he can control animals, he can creepily crawl up and down walls, he can turn into a bat, there's just so many things that he can do that vampires in stories now just cannot do. But you know, the vampires in like Vampire Diaries are way hotter, way hotter. I don't really know what else to say about this. Like, it's fine. I'm not loving it, I'm not hating it. I think it's definitely of its time with talking about how like fragile and meek all the women are, and we can't burden them with the knowledge of anything or else their little hearts just won't be able to take it. And then these men are just so dumb too, because we have one character who is preyed on by a vampire, and then another girl later down the story, she has the exact same symptoms of it and they just ignore it. So the men are very smart in this, and there's just a few lines here and there that are so gross where it'll say things like, yeah, men in general are just like really wonderful and women don't deserve them. They'll just be like little lines here and there that you know this was written by a man. Like, you know it was written by a man, and it makes me want to barf. But it's not bad. I will probably be finished with it tomorrow, but it will definitely not be my favorite book that I've ever read, but I will be glad that I have read it. I don't know what else to say about that, but I will check in with you when I am done with this damn book. It's taken me like a friggin' month to get this far. Alright, see you tomorrow. Okay, we have Finnish Dracula, but I'm going to be completely honest and say that I was listening to the audiobook while working on my bullet journal, and I don't think I paid very close attention to the details of the end of this, but I think I only had like 75 pages left, and it was really just them like going and finding where Dracula was and getting rid of him. So I think I understood what happened. There was a character who died. There was a character who was like willing to sacrifice herself. There was still a lot of talk of how men are such magical, wonderful, amazing, brave people, and women are never worthy of them. So, you know, I'm not liking that aspect to it, but the overall story was cool. It was nice to like know the details of Dracula, because I don't think this was a required reading when I was in high school, and if it was, I like vaguely remember only needing to read like a chapter or two. I think we might have only read like the first couple of chapters when his name's not Harlow. I learned that his name is Harker when he was writing his journal. Like, I had a vague memory of those journal entries, but I think that's where we stopped. So I think that's all that the teacher had to have us go into. But funny fact on me calling him Harlow, yeah, that was because that day that I had gave you that update, I was also reading Ice Planet Barbarians, and I think it was the 4th or 5th one where the girl's name was Harlow. So, you know, I renamed him after an Ice Planet Barbarian character. So like, my bad, but like, whatever. Yeah, so would I pick this up again? No. Would I recommend it? I don't know. I think it's fine. It's alright. It has its problems, but it is like a classic. So if you're interested in classics and stuff, go ahead and read it. But I don't feel like this recommendation was really tapered to me. So, I don't know. 4 stars? I don't really know. I did it. Aren't you proud? Just be proud of me. If you are so proud of me, just leave me a bat emoji or something. Or is there even a bat emoji? I don't know. Let's wrap up this video. Alright, you have made it to the end of this vlog, and I am so happy with how this turned out. We had some hits, we had some misses, we had some books that took me like 4 million years to get through. But that's okay. We got to the end of this video, and I am so happy. So I already told you, leave me a bat emoji if you made it all the way to the end of Dracula. And if you have also made it this far in the video, let me know if you have read any of these books and which ones you liked, or did you DNF any of them? I don't know. I just want to chat about books. And if you would also like to chat with me about books somewhere else, you can find my Instagram and my Discord in the description. But I think that's all that I have for this video, so I'm going to leave you here, and I will see you in my next one, which should be out very, very shortly. All right, bye.